we had a discussion on one of your OOPS concept, which was abstraction achieved through abstract classes. And is there any doubts in that? People are clear with that? Raise up your hands. Only 6 people have raised up your hand. What about others? Okay, so now let's continue with our other possible way to achieve abstraction. What is that? When you wanted to achieve abstraction, there are two possible ways. One was using abstract classes. The other one, what is the other one? What is the other one? Okay, so get to know, whenever we know, every one of us know what is an abstraction. Okay, when you wanted to achieve abstraction, the first possible way is using abstract classes, wherein we'll be getting only 0 to 100% of abstraction. That is very a bit less accurate answer we get in first possible way. Why? Because in your abstract classes, there are chances you have non-abstract methods also. This might reduce the accuracy. Okay, so that is why we have another possible way, which is using interface. I hope every one of you heard the word called interface.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now today we are going to see again how to achieve abstraction using interfaces. What is the difference to abstract class and interfaces? Okay, so now the first most major thing, okay, before me telling, you guys give me some inputs. Later on, I will move on. What do you know about interface? Whatever you know, without any hesitation, saying like, is it right or wrong, you can tell me, no problem. None of you knows that? See, I do not want you to be silent whenever there is an answer, like you're aware, you're not aware, that is secondary. Okay. I want you to tell me what you know. And I want you to also tell me if you don't know anything.
It is a blueprint of a class.
Blueprint of a class. Okay.
Like only method name is there, declaration is there, not uh, it, like only method is declared. That's it.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Good. Yes, it's almost right. Good. Okay, listen everyone. So I told there was a bit less accurate answer you get when it comes to abstract classes. Okay, why? Because we have non-abstract methods also inside your abstract classes. And whenever you create an abstract class, you can also have a scenario where there are no abstract methods at all also. Okay, so in that case, how does it been overcome is nothing but whenever you create interface, whichever method you create inside interface, it is always abstract only. Okay, now inside your day 8 project, I'm creating a package and I'll say this is for your interface. Done. So now here inside this, I'm going to create a class called nodes, which will help you to have the basic understanding about your interfaces. Okay. So now when we speak about interfaces, okay, so the first and foremost thing which you should keep it in your mind is the keyword which we use. What is the keyword for your abstract class? What is the keyword for your abstract class? Abstract itself. Here, the keyword is interface itself. Okay. And how does your interface looks? Okay, it will look
Abstract.
like a class. Okay, but it is not a class. Not all the features of classes will be given. Only the signature will be matching. Okay, only signature is matching. I repeat. So whenever we create a class, we give the class keyword and a name for a class. Similarly, you have to give the keyword interface and give a name for your interface. Next, it looks exact like a class only, the way it looks alone. Okay, but working is going to be a bit different one. Okay, the next most important thing which you should keep it in your mind is your interface can have only abstract method. So in your abstract classes, what happened? We can have abstract method and we can have non-abstract methods also. But when it comes to interface, it can have only abstract method. Is that clear? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what
Yes,
about
ma'am.
variables? Can it have variables? The answer is yes, it can have variables. When it comes to method, only abstract methods. And when it comes to variables, like you can have it, not a problem. But what is the default accessibility of that? That is very, very important. Okay, so when it comes to general Java, okay, whenever I create a variable in Java, what is the default access modifier assigned to that variable?
Default.
Default, correct? Now, whenever you assign or whenever you create a variable in interface, the default accessibility will be public static final. In your Java, whenever you wanted to make your variable to be final, you give final keyword. Whenever you wanted to make it static, then you give static. Whenever public, give public. Manually, you have to give it. But when it comes to interface, when you just write int I, automatically by default, the accessibility given to that variable is public static final. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, then what about method? Whenever I create a method in Java, it is default again. But whenever I create any method in interface, then it gets the accessibility of public abstract. Even in abstract classes, what happened? Whenever I wanted to create an abstract method, I should give abstract keyword. If not, it throwed me an error. Could you guys remember?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but when it comes to interface, you need not mandatorily give public abstract. It is optional. If you give also, not a problem. If you do not give also, not a problem. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, moving on. The same thing, you cannot instantiate interface. Okay, you cannot create objects for the interface. That is the next most thing. Then how do you give definition for your method? For example, I'm creating an interface. How do you create an interface? Select where you wanted to create it, go to new. You'll have an interface option here. So when you go for that, you are expected to give a name for your interface. So you give INF1 and give a finish. Now here, see, automatically you have received the keyword interface and the name for your interface, and you have got the curly braces like your class. Now here, now tell me, when I say int I, what was the accessibility, default accessibility?
Public static.
Fine.
Public static final. That is why, could you see there is an error popped up saying the blank final field I may not have been initialized. Even though I did not give the final variable, it is telling me it is a final field I because it takes the default accessibility. Okay. Now similarly, when I say void display, Now this is more than sufficient. Okay, what is the default accessibility here?
Public abstract.
Public abstract. Now what did I tell you? If you give also not a problem, if you do not give also not a problem. So when you give public, okay, not a problem. When you don't give public and when you give just abstract, okay, not a problem. When you give public abstract together, not a problem. Okay, so either of the case it is going to work. Now comes your next question. So now here in your abstract class concept, whenever you wanted to give the definition for your abstract method, so what did you do? What did we do? I couldn't understand your silence. None of you remember? Okay, let me wait. I want answers only, then I'm moving on.
Initializing.
Initializing where? How?
By inheriting that abstract class.
Okay, with the help of inheritance, what was the class name? What was the class name which helped us to give the definition of abstract method? Even in the beginning of the session, someone told that.
Ma'am, the definition of the abstraction.
Yeah, tell
Hello?
me the class name. Okay, maybe it's echoing. You can go on mute. Okay, so the question
Concrete
is
classes.
concrete classes, correct? So in your abstract classes, the class which, for example, shape is your abstract class and square is a concrete class. Why did we say this is a concrete class? Because this class is taking the properties and behaviors of the abstract class, correct? Now, similarly, whenever you have an abstract method inside your interface, then again you are dependent on a class. Okay, let me say interface implementable IMPL. Okay, so why did I give INF IMPL is the class which takes the properties and behaviors of the interface are called as implementable class. That is concrete class. This is implementable class. Clear? Only if you unmute and answer me, I'm going to move on.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Now comes your next question. Now, when I say a class takes the properties and behaviors of another class, what is the keyword we use? What is the keyword we use
Extend.
when we say a class takes the properties and behaviors of another class?
Extends.
Extends. Similarly, whenever a class takes the properties and behaviors of another interface, what is the keyword? Now I wanted to say this INF IMPL takes the properties and behaviors of INF1. How do I connect it both? What is the keyword? It is implements itself. Clear? There it is extends, here it is implements. Every one of you clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now why do we get an error? Because there is an abstract method in INF1 we have not implemented here. Then go for the suggestion, add unimplemented methods, you get your output. I mean, you get an error-free program. So the next important point which you should keep it in your mind is implements to classes, it is extends. Now here comes your next question. When all should we use implements? When all should I use extends? The answer for that is class to class it is extends. Interface to interface it is extends. Okay. And class to interface it's implement. What about then interface to class? Any idea? There are 4 possibilities only. To the same type for 2 different scenarios, 2 different possibility. Different type, again 2 possibility. So class to class extends, interface to interface extends. Now class to interface, it's implement. Similarly, interface to class. How? What is the keyword? Interface to class is not possible. When you try doing, I mean, whenever you say an interface takes the properties and behaviors of the class, that is not possible. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this you should keep it in your mind very carefully because there are scenarios in your interviews, they may write this statement. Okay, so in that case, you should directly tell it's an error. Okay, now how does interface to interface if you ask me? So here I will create an interface and I'll say INF2. Okay, I'll say INF2 extends INF1. So see, technically it is right. When I give implements, it throws me an error. What is error? Syntax error on token implements permits expected. So here extends is the right keyword. Okay, this points I want every one of you to keep it in your mind. This will actually help you to give your complete or get your complete understanding on your interface concept. Okay, so please do make a note of it and let me know, then I'll move on. So once you have done, make a note of it and tell me once you're done, made note of it. Please do raise up your hand. Okay. I could say around 8 to 9, okay, 10 different people are done with that. So we'll see some examples, 1 or 2 examples. Then you'll get a clarity on it. Okay. So now here I am creating an interface. So I'll say here interface and I'll give the name for the interface to be bike. Okay. So now I'll say inside this interface bike, there is a method called get mileage. Okay. Don't worry about the implementation. I mean the definition or the names which we said much. It's not, you need not much concentrate on it. We're trying to understand the concept only. Now here, always create a class which is connected to your example. Okay, can you tell me some bike name which I will give to the class, current class?
Royal Enfield.
Sorry, your voice is not clear.
Royal Enfield.
Okay, so I will give a bike name. Okay, now how do I connect? Maybe I'll close all the other classes. Now tell me, how do I connect my bike interface with RE class?
Implements.
Implements keyword. So here I say Royal Enfield implements bike. Understood. Sooner, what error comes up? Your bike is having an interface called get mileage, and here you are expected to give the definition because every bike will have a mileage and it might differ from bikes to bikes, right? So that is why we are not giving the definition over here, and we are expected to give a specific answer respective to the bike. Okay, so here I have given. Now, could you say overridden? Again, here comes the concept of polymorphism, which I have told you in your abstract class session. Now, here I will give a printing statement. Tell me mileage, not approximate mileage for your RE. No one knows? Okay. Let me keep it to be 38 maybe, or approximate value 38 kilometer per liter. Okay. Now this is done. Now, when I wanted to get to know if you are going and asking an RE showroom, or if you are asking a person who has an RE bike, what would be a question? What is the mileage does the bike gives? Correct. So in that case, the answer you want. How do you technically ask? You go and create a class. So here I will create a class saying interface example, which has public static void main. And I believe every one of you know that you cannot create object for your interface. Yes, even right now I told you. So on that note, I have to create object of my implementable class. So I'll say RE is equal to new object of it. Next, I will call the get mileage method. And now when I run my code, you get your output accordingly. Now, which all ways you can create object? You can create object of your implementable class and give the reference of interface also. This is also technically correct. Okay, this is also technically correct. Okay, but you cannot instantiate bike bi is equal to new bike. You cannot do this because see here, what is the error message? Cannot instantiate the type bike. Why? It's an interface. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now here comes your next question. Now we are going with your auto suggestion. Okay, now here you are not working in an IDE where it shows you some suggestion. You have to manually write it, right? So now what am I going to do? Okay, I got to know there are some methods which I have to implement it, which is get mileage. Then what do? I take the declaration over here and I will give the definition. I will give the same, which is mileage of RE is 38 kilometer per liter. Done. But why am I getting an error? When I went with auto suggestion, I did not get any error. But when I write it manually, I'm getting error. Why? Okay, maybe I'll show you the error message. Give a think and tell me. Look into the error message and tell me. Can someone read the error message?
Multiple markers at this line.
Yeah, what are the multiple markers? That is just a heading. Since we have more than one error over there.
Cannot reduce the visibility of the inherited methods from bike.
Okay.
Implement form.cg.interface package.bike.get mileage.
Okay. Now tell me what is the error? I mean, understanding of your error. There are two errors. The first one is cannot reduce the visibility of the inherited method. Second one is you are trying to implement a package name, interface in that package and a method in that interface. Now, what is happening? Why do we get this error? Tell me, when do we get an error message of visibility? I'm not going to tell the answer. I have told you this in the session. When do we get the error message as visibility? Cannot reduce the visibility, kind of a visibility message.
Access modifiers.
When there is an issue with your access modifier. Now tell me what is the issue with access modifier here? What was the accessibility of your get mileage method inside your interface?
Public.
Public. Okay. What was the access modifier of your method inside your class?
Default.
Default. Is it both same? No. So whenever you are trying to give the definition of an abstract method inside an interface, when you go for auto suggestion, automatically public access modifier will be added. If you are manually writing it, be very cautious. You have to give public keyword. Only then it takes public. Clear? Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Please be very, very careful. This is a very, very small thing which every one of us forget to notice it. Okay, a very simple thing. We know the accessibility inside interface is public, the accessibility inside the class is default, and only if both the things. What is the concept of overriding? Only if the method signature is exact same, only the definition is different, then it is method overriding. But we wanted to do overriding, but we are missing out something that is nothing but your public accessibility. So this, I want every one of you to always keep it in your mind. Okay, any other further doubts for anyone in this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. So that's it, the concept of interface. But here comes another question. So in our previous session, we had a discussion that multiple inheritance cannot be achieved through classes, abstract classes, but can be achieved through interface, correct? Do you guys remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. First of all, you guys tell me, what is the issue with your multiple inheritance through classes?
Ambiguity.
Ambiguity issue. There comes a confusion which one to choose it out. But here we are going to overcome that confusion with the help of an interface. Just give me a minute, I'll be back. Yeah, so let's continue. So here we'll go with the same example. I believe day 7. No. Okay, day 6, do we have inheritance? No, day 5. Yeah, so multiple inheritance. Okay, so I'm going to do a copy and paste it inside your interface. Okay, done. So now here, let me open this. Okay, so here what are we going to do is, what was the disadvantage we had? Whenever you are working with your multiple inheritance, you wanted to call both the parent classes to be extended. I mean, the child should receive the properties and behaviors from both the parent. In that case, it is not working out because the syntax is not allowed to avoid the ambiguity issue. Why did the ambiguity issue happen? Because when there is a method which is available both of the parent with different implementation, which one should be considered? The compiler gets confused. In that case, we go giving with the same thing with an interface. So what is the rules and regulation for interface? Interface will have the keyword as interface. So I'll change both of my parent as interface. And inside interface, you can have only abstract method. So I'm removing the implementation, making it abstract. Here also I'm removing the implementation, making it abstract. Whenever your class is getting the properties and behaviors from an interface, what is the keyword you use?
Implements.
Implement. So you change this extends keyword as implement. So the syntax is allowed, but you still get an error. Why? It is because the interface is having an abstract method which we have not implemented yet. So whenever you are implementing an abstract method in an interface, how should you implement? How should you implement?
Public.
Public, good. And you go with the return type of the method, the name of the method. And here you come up with a message. My parents have the habit of snoring. So here comes no confusion that who does have it? Is it only dad or is it only mom? So in that case, see here, when you say snoring, it is in your class of you only. Okay, previously it was taking the dad one. Now here you are able to achieve the concept of multiple inheritance. Could you see? Yes, clear? People who have any doubts, you have to
Yes, ma'am.
unmute and get it clarified. Yeah, so the answer why we are able to achieve multiple inheritance through interface. If someone asks you, interface helps us to achieve 100% abstraction because it allows only abstract method. So if two of my parent uh, hierarchy, okay, parents, not always parent class, it can be a parent hierarchy, okay, have a similar feature, and if I am going to get, or if the child is going to get that particular characteristic, we do not implement it over there, so that there comes, I mean, the ambiguity issue is being sorted. This is how you should answer. But again, with a proper example, and the way you explain should be an impressive one to them. 50 to 70 percentage, you will always get this question. And it depends on the interviewer. Clear for everyone? And here we are winding up with the concept of interface with your day 8. Day 8, if I'm not wrong. So now people are clear with your day 8 concepts. Type clear in your chat. Okay, I could see few answers in the chat as clear. Good to know. So now I'm going to move on with a small concept under your day 9. So still we have some time, so we can cover up that day 9 concepts also. So before we moving on, I believe every one of you know Java is going to be, okay, Java is partially object oriented or fully object oriented?
Partial.
Partially, why? Why? Why is it partially? Yes, it still has the primitive data types because all your primitive data types will not work in the level of objects, correct? So now, what if my requirement is to work with integer values in the form of object? So here comes your answer for that. I'm creating a new project and let me name it to be day 9. Okay, in which I'm going to create a package. Okay, this was a class. I'm going to create a package form.cg.wrapper class. Heard about wrapper class? Till now we had come across with class, abstract class, concrete class, implementable class, and similarly we do have a class called wrapper class. Heard about it? Yes, no.
No.
No. Okay. Fine, not a problem. So now here, all your primitive data types. Tell me all your primitive data types.
Int, long, double, float, short.
Yes, you do have. When it comes to primitive, you will be able to find all your int, all this under your numerical, character, boolean under your non-numerical. And when it comes to numerical, you do also have about a decimal and a full number, correct? Not decimal and a decimal. Now, if the requirement from the client is, I wanted to store a numerical value, but not as a simple variable, but I wanted to store it in the form of object. If such question arises, then you have to work on with your wrapper classes. What is this wrapper class? The class which wraps your primitive input and stores in the form of object. I repeat, the class which wraps your primitive input and stores in the form of object. Clear? That is wrapper class. How does it going to do? We will see it up now. Is everyone clear what is wrapper class? Yes. Now we'll move on for an example. Okay. So let me create a class called wrapper class demo. Wrapper class demo, which will have public static void main over here. Now here, whenever I wanted to create a primitive variable, what will I do? I say int I is equal to 10. For example, this is your primitive type creation. Correct? In case if I wanted to create or convert this variable, maybe first we'll go with the creation. In case if I wanted to create a variable of integer, but in the wrapper type, first of all, How do you represent in wrapper the full name? When you wanted to store an integer variable, you should write integer completely. And you should always start with an uppercase. Okay, next, as usual, give a variable. Maybe I'll give a different variable. Next, I wanted this to be stored in the or created in the form of object. How do you create an object? What is the keyword used for object?
New.
New. So you give new. You are going to create object for which class? To the integer class. You may say, ma'am, integer is not a class. Integer is a class when you write in this fashion. Okay. So could you see the integer class? Integer class wraps a value of the primitive type int in an object. So I told wrapper class is a class which wraps the value of your primitive in an object. Since it is integer, they are very specific with a keyword called int. I mean integer and int. And you could see a strikeout mark on your integer of your object. Could you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Why is that? This is a deprecated version, means maybe the older version, deprecated in the sense it's an older fashion of writing it. Nowadays it is not recommended. Okay, so you should always know the older version but use the updated version. What is the updated version? You can just say integer k is equal to I. This is more than sufficient. What is happening here? I is a primitive variable which holds 10 in it. I'm trying to store 10 in k in the form of integer type. So now tell me what type of casting is happening here. This is again a concept of typecasting, right? Internally. Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now tell me what type of typecasting. First of all, tell me what all the types of typecasting we have. Implicit, okay.
Explicit.
What is the technical name? We have discussed this in your day 2 topic, day 1 topic.
Narrowing and widening.
Narrowing and widening. Which is implicit, which is explicit?
Narrowing is explicit, expanding is implicit.
Okay, now tell me what is used in your line number 7. Is it implicit or explicit? A very simple question. We know implicit in the sense automatic. When we go with the explicit, it's a manual. Am I doing any manual conversion here? No. So this is your implicit. Okay. So similarly, okay, when I say float A is equal to 12.23 F, then when I wanted to say integer B is equal to A, what is happening here? Why am I getting an error? Ignore this error because this is an older version. Why am I getting this error? See guys, only if you are touching with your concepts in a regular basis, you will be able to answer my question and it's going to be easy for you also to attend the interview. I'm not going to tell the answer.
Mismatched type of input.
Yes, it is because of mismatch type of the input. So how do I sort it out? What is the solution?
We need to convert to integer.
Okay, how do I convert? What is the syntax?
The integer in brackets and then the A.
Okay, so where should I place the bracket of integer? Before A or after A?
Before A.
Before A. So here, before you set integer, then you do it. What is happening here? What is happening?
You
What
have
is
kept
your
your
message?
int, maybe int.
Maybe int. Okay, good. So always understand you are trying to cast it to your expected type, correct? But you have to also be cautious about the type of your input. Is that a primitive or a non-primitive? Sorry, is that a primitive or is that a wrapper? Okay, always whenever you wanted to do same thing, if you wanted to do float, C is equal to 12.23 F float. C is equal to 12.23 F. Then if you say int D is equal to C, what are you doing? You're storing a primitive type variable. In a primitive type variable, the issue is only with the size. In that case, what you do? You just have a look into the data type and give the same. Sorted. But here what is happening? The issue is with the type of your input and the size of your input also. Okay, in that case, you just make sure the type is modified and automatically the size will be taken up because that is wrapper concept. Automatically it wraps up. Clear? Yes, no?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now whenever you are creating a primitive type and storing it in a wrapper type, this is your wrapper, this is your wrapper type. Whenever you are doing this, then this is the concept of unboxing. There are two terms, okay, unboxing and auto boxing. Then this is going to be, sorry, I told you a wrong name. It's auto boxing. Automatically it is happening, right? It is auto boxing. So you are converting a primitive to a wrapper. Maybe I'll remove this line. I'll remove the extra lines also over here. This is the example for typecasting in your wrapper. Okay. So there are two types. The first one was auto boxing and the second one was unboxing. Okay, auto boxing means you take a primitive variable and store it in a wrapper, then you can do it. Now, if you want to do unboxing, what do you do? Unboxing is vice versa only. So, unboxing is you create a integer wrapper type. Okay, so I'll say int. Tell me some name for your variable. A name for your variable. Let me check the chat. No one has responded.
Num.
It's okay. Integer x is equal to 20. Just give me a minute. Okay, so what is unboxing is whenever you create a wrapper, type, then you store it in a primitive type. How do you store, for example, int y? Can you directly store x? Yes, it is possible. Now, this is a newer version. In the older version, why am I telling? It's nothing but before storing it, you convert it into a value. Now, x is your wrapper. I've already used y. Okay, z. Okay, x dot. You have certain values. Now, for example, x is your integer. So there is a method called int value. You call this method, then you store it. This is your older version of unboxing. Is that clear? The newer version is very, very easy. You just assign like a normal flow, which we have learned. Both the ways it is working. Okay. In the older version, what do you do for your auto boxing? Like logically, how do we create an object? Similarly, you do it. For unboxing, we have methods. Since x is your integer, you have int value. Now, if x is going to be a float, okay. So let me do this as a float, and here I'm going to store it in a float variable, and this is going to be okay. Now here the method will be x dot float value. Okay, whatever the data type it is, accordingly the method is designed. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there are two types of wrapper classes, which is auto boxing and unboxing. Auto boxing means converting a primitive to a wrapper. Unboxing means wrapper to primitive. For both the thing, we have an older version and the newer version. Newer version is just assigning the variable. The older version depends on the scenario. It varies with the syntax. Okay, people are clear with this? Quickly raise up your hand. Okay, great, good. So with this note, we'll stop our tech discussion over here. And I just want a small check, and I have circulated the post selection form in the previous week. And I just wanted